Hey, good morning. Chuck here with Apple Drains. Let's take a look at do's and don'ts of sump basins.
You know, we put in hundreds of pumps every year, and the sump basins, hundreds of these things, basements, crawl spaces, and in the backyard. This is a proper basin, and if you look at this, look closely. It's pretty obvious. You see where they've got the nipple already stuck out? See that? They've got knockouts all the way around. You can see they've got an area here, and see where the knockout is? This is the minimum depth that you can bring a line into the sump basin. Why? Because the sump pump sits down here on the bottom, and you need an area to collect water.
Sump basins with inlet lines coming in at the bottom create problems. Let me show you why here.
And, you know, I'm really happy to see some of these people telling you these ideas. They've got great ideas, but what I'm really excited about is they're starting to use the Zoller M98, which I've been telling you for the past 30 years, that's the best pump on the market. And they're just starting to realize that. And I hope they continue to use the Zoller products. Like I said, that American-made product, of course, these are the best pumps on the market. What makes them the best? It's not that they're made in America, it's that they're made with cast iron and the heat dissipates very quickly. Like I said, we put in hundreds of pumps every year. Backyards, crawl spaces, basements. That's why you see the nipples and the knockouts on the side. You bring water into the side of the pit. Can you achieve more fall? Yes. You could bring that line clear down to here. And you could also make a deeper pit. If you want to build your own sump basin using a culvert, that's great. But do not bring the pipes in at the bottom. That is just such a no-no.
So if someone's showing you this type of ready-made basin with this giant inlet line coming in with no collection on the bottom, you're going to replace that pump so often. Remember, a good Zoller costs $300. And without a collection area for that pump's going to burn out pretty quick. We are the innovators of backyard pumps. Over 30 years, no one was doing this. And what we found is the sump basin needs a solid lid. Do not put a grate over top of your sump basin. Instead, use a catch basin to bring that surface water into your basin. Just another example of those little $15 basins that save you so much money. Like I said, we've been installing sump pumps and sump basins for well over 30 years. In fact, we install a sump pump nearly every day, whether it be in Charlotte with Kevin's office or here in Orlando where I'm installing in Florida. We install so many pumps. And the best thing I've seen out there on these channels is that they are beginning to use the Zoller M98. You can see this right away. That inlet line coming in, number one, is way too big, but you can see that the pump would not actuate, so water would lay in that line. The pump needs an area for water to collect. This is the basics of sump pumps. Remember, the sump pump needs to set just below the inlet line. Can you see where my finger is? This is the minimum depth of the inlet line. These ideas are pretty cool, but they really don't work. And, you know, the idea of a drop-in basin, that's just really not feasible. Every job is different. There's different levels to every depth of install. We have hundreds of videos showing you how to install the inlet line and the outlet line coming into these sump basins. And you'll notice that when we install them in all of our videos, that we're installing the sump basin, digging the trench, and then we make the mark of where we're coming into that sump basin. Here's an example of a recent install, and you can see exactly what we're talking about.
So here's our Zoller M98 plumbed and discharging through the side of the sump basin. You can see the inlet line that brings in all the water from the catch basin and from the French drain.
Notice the level of the inlet line. It is above the float. You need an area for water to collect for this sump pump to work properly. Otherwise, it's going to burn out very quickly. And at $300 for a new sump pump, I just hope that you understand why this is so important. and that what you might be seeing on other channels is wrong. Setting up that inlet line on your sump basin really is a custom process.
When you install a sump pump inside of a sump basin in your backyard, you need a solid lid. You can bring that water in here at the side, but do not bring it down here at the bottom. That does not work properly. That pump will just continue to run. Okay, let's take a look at this sump basin, and you tell me what's wrong with this setup. Can you see all the problems that exist here? Number one is that there is an inlet line coming in at the bottom of this basin. And I'm going to fill up that catch basin and let the water come over here and show you why you do not put this down at the bottom. You notice that there's another one here, much higher. It's actually above the float, above the pump. This is the proper way to do that. So number one, we've got an inlet line coming in that's way too low. Number two, no check valve. You see that? No check valve. And number three, they've got this monstrosity of a pipe coming up and discharging above ground. It's kind of tacky, don't you think? But let's take a look. This is a Zoller M53 they've got down here, 1/3 of a horsepower, and it works great. You know, it's a good pump. It doesn't pump as fast as the M98, but they said this isn't working. So I'm going to fill it up and let's take a look. Okay, I unplugged the pump and we're going to go ahead and let this fill up. You can see the water coming in from the inlet line. Remember, I've already dug some of this up out here because I know what we're going to do, so I've started to do that, but we'll get to that. So let this water fill up inside the pit and show you why you don't want to have an inlet line coming in at the bottom of your basin. Notice the pump the float's not even coming up yet. It's not even beginning to float. Look how high that water's getting, and look what's happening to that inlet line. It's totally submerged in the water. So sand and debris gets stuck, just lays in that pipe. Even if it starts to drain, that line's filling up with debris each time that this recycles, each time that the pump kicks on. We're going to put a new Zoller M98 in here, and we're going to send this, notice this monstrosity coming up out of the ground. We're going to actually drill a hole through the side of the basin and bring this line out underground and discharge it all underground. We're going to go to daylight. Okay, that pipe's totally submerged. Look at that. And the pump, the float still hasn't come up to where it actuates yet. That's a big problem right there. Okay, that float just reached the spot where it should actuate. And I'm going to go ahead and power the pump. Remember that float's bad and it's kind of stuck in the on position. So I'm going to power the pump and watch what happens. Pump kicks on. It takes all the water out, and there's where it would shut off. You see that water still laying in the pipe down there? It doesn't go anywhere. It just stays there and begins to fill back up again. This causes the pump to run and run and run. And what happens is, during a smaller rain, that float comes up to about this level, and it stays there for days and days. What happens is the float switch goes bad because it's at the wrong level. The pump should remove all the water and be at the bottom in the off position. But when that pump's here, when that float sticks here, you can see the lever, it gets stuck. Burns out that pump every time. Okay, before I pull the pump, I just want you to see. Notice this line, totally dry, right? No water. See this bottom line where they brought it in at the bottom of the basin? See how much water is sitting in that pipe? You see the sand and debris that lays in the line? Total no-no. Does not work properly. Burn this pump out right away. Okay, let's set up the Zoller M98. Let me show you why this is so important for these sump basins. When you're putting in the M98, Zoller M98, that's the pump to use. But let's take a look. You know, when you get your Zoller M98, if you go to Lowe's, they actually sell the exact same one now at Lowe's. So easy for you to go pick up, or you can order it online through Amazon or whatever you want. Comes in the box. when you lift up this pump, always use the handle. And it is heavy. Inside the box, there's a warranty card. And what you do is you scan, you see the scan marking up there? You scan that and you can register your pump, which is important. So let's take a look at the pump real quick. You can see it's solid cast iron. Like I said, it's really heavy, and it's got a float with a protection bar, around it. This float, as water level rises in that sump basin, it comes up. Can you hear that click? It kicks it on. When water level goes down, then it shuts it off. So it's very cost effective. Very cost effective. But what we don't want is to have that line, your inlet line from your French drains or your downspouts or whatever you're tying into the sump basin, come in at the bottom of the pit, because the line it stays full of water. The pump can never take that out. So let's set up the pump. You start with a male threaded 1.5" adapter. You can see the threads and you can see the slip joint. This is 1.5". This is going to screw into the port of that pump. It's right here. And you just screw it in. Be careful not to cross thread this, otherwise you got a problem. Put it on there as tight as you can, hand tight, and that's set to go. So the first thing we do is we cut about a 5 or 6 inch piece of PVC. What we want to do, we're not going to glue anything yet. We're going to stick this in the male threaded 1.5" adapter, and we want to make sure that this little riser is above the protection bar, because we want to set our check valve inside the pit. We don't want this pipe coming up and going out across the ground, tying it to a fence or the house or whatever. We want it to be a very clean installation. That's so tacky to run that across the ground. So we want to keep it underground. And you really have to have the check valve. It's very important. Someone said something about, oh, they don't put a check valve in there because it freezes. That's crazy. So we need to have a check valve to keep that water from coming back down the line. Okay, next you need a 3/16 inch drill bit and your handy dandy Black & Decker. And what we're going to do is we're going to drill a pressure relief hole here, because this thing builds up a lot of pressure and we need to have a relief hole. The relief hole is below the check valve. Real simple, quick. Okay, next you need a 5/16 inch nut driver, and you get your check valve out. Now remember, the check valve is very important. Even if it's in your frozen north, it doesn't matter. You need a check valve. And there's always going to be markings on that check valve. This one has arrows. Can you see them? It tells you the direction of the flow. Water's coming up through the line, up through the riser. So we're going to set the check valve in place. The check valve is held together with stainless steel no-hub bands. And it actually comes from 1.25" to 1.5". Simply put it on, make sure that you got it all the way down to the bottom of that no-hub coupling, and then tighten it up. Just as tight as that drill can make it. That's really all we're going to do here at this point. When we put this in the sump basin, once we put this in the sump basin, we'll add another riser, but it's only going to come up about this high, and we'll put a 90 on it, and then we'll turn and come out through the side of the sump basin, because we want this to be underground. Remember, it's so tacky. You did all this work to install the basin, all your French drains, downspout. Finish the job. Put it underground and let it discharge to daylight. Hey, I apologize about the sweat. It is very hot here in Florida. Quick note, I posted this video yesterday, and it's actually, the comment section is actually under review. So I'm basically reposting, and I guess the person took the bait. So let's leave it at that. Okay, we've put the M98 down in the sump basin, pulled the other one out. Let me just show you a couple things. We're going to drill a hole through the side of the pit. so that we can bring the discharge line out underground. Don't bring this line up and run it across the ground or tie it to the fence. It's definitely going to freeze if you're up north, but more than that, it looks so tacky. You need a small little insert riser that goes into the top of the check valve. We'll tighten all this up later. Then you need a 90, 1.5 inch 90. That's going to set on top, and then we just make that measurement as it comes through. We're going to use a 2-inch hole saw. That is the exact outer diameter of 1.5 inch pipe, so it makes a very secure hole. The pipe will slide right through, no debris can get in, nothing. Works really good. Using your handy dandy portable drill with the 2-inch hole saw, we're going to go ahead and cut a hole through the outside. So using your portable drill with a 2-inch hole saw, I'm going to drill a hole right through here. And you could measure this, but I'm pretty good at lining this up. Been doing it for 30+ years. Real simple. Hole saw just cuts a perfect hole. Next, you're going to use a smaller piece of PVC just to get started through here. And you can see it lines up just right. Perfect fit. One more thing that I would suggest, even though you can take this apart at the check valve, is to put a no-hub right here. Because if you need to service that pump, very simple, disconnect the no-hub, and then you can pull the pump right out. So we're going to do that right now. So using another small insert, I'm going to go ahead and stick part of it into the no-hub. We'll tighten all this up and glue it here in just a second, but for right now, we just want to get it started so I can show you. The discharge is going to hook up. We've already got that section trenched, so we're going to go ahead and hook this up. This is called a no-hub coupling. No-hub coupling. And we tighten that up with your handy-dandy Black & Decker. Can you believe somebody actually made fun of my drill? Whoops. Okay, yeah. So I haven't glued that up yet. And now we're going to repeat the scenario that we just showed you with the old pump. Remember, it went bad, so I'm going to add the water to the catch basin. It's going to come in at the bottom of that bottom pipe, and you're going to see why that is such a big no-no and why that pump burns. Can you see that inlet line that coming in at the bottom? That line's full of water. So let me give you the scenario. Let's just say that it only rains, you know, 1/4 inch. And so your system, whether it's French drains or catch basins, you know, whatever the system is, not enough water to fill up the pit and actuate it. So what happens is this float gets halfway up, and this bar that actuates the pump gets sitting here for days and weeks at a time. It freezes up and the pump goes bad because the float goes bad.
So the pump just kicked on, and you'll see how it's stopped. The pump has stopped pumping. Look how much water and sand and debris lays in that line. If you have 100 feet of this French drain or yard drain, downspout drain, and I mean, look at the debris that's going to lay in that line. I think you can see that the list of reasons why you do not bring the inlet line at the bottom of the pit is quite long. Proper installation is where the inlet line comes in above the float.
You know, Apple Drains has been installing sump pumps and things in the backyard for over 30 years. We are the innovators of this idea. I think we know what we're talking about. So what we had to do was we had to add a catch basin here. This is a double outlet catch basin, so there's a line going that way and a line going this way, which goes over to the sump basin. And you see we've got the solid lid cover on it. Remember that we've got our discharge line running out underground, and it goes out through, you know, beyond here and goes out to daylight. So we had to put an extension because that line was so deep. We had to put an extension on here, and we add the grate. Now we just go ahead and finish backfilling, and we're done. Proper sump basin installation. Hey, this is Chuck with Apple Drains, reminding you that if you believe you can do something,
I guarantee you can do it. Have a great day.
Be sure to subscribe and watch these other great videos on rainwater drainage.